Good morning. So we left off at the end of the last year. We were handling the sugya of duchening every day, and the gain in particular, Hashita. So we were discussing the different shitas of Rishonim, how primarily the Sephardic custom of duchening every day, al pi the Rishonim, seems to be, authentic, meaning there's a mitzvah to duchen every day. There's no reason the mitzvah should only be some days. And we mentioned that the Ramah mentions a minig b'im kaimaisav that we don't duchen every day anymore. We only duchen by Musaf and Yom Tov. And there was a tumult as to what the reason is. And we mentioned that the Magen Avraham says it's a minig garua, and that the Goyin really wanted to instate it, but because of the simim and shemayim that he experienced, he didn't follow through on reinstating it. So now I wanted to jump back in where we were holding and continue this discussion and see where we get to. So we mentioned that the Goyin really sought to, but didn't do it because of a simim and shemayim. Now there are other poskim of contemporary poskim of that time who also strongly press for the reinstitution or for the benefit of duchening, and amongst them is the Shulchan Aruch Harav in Sim Kuf Chav Ches. Shulchan Aruch Harav writes as follows. He says, he brings first the time not to do it, and then he says v'chol time eluhim liyashav aminig. All of these time that we're giving are just to be miyashav aminig. Af she'ein bem kedei levatel mitzvahs seishal Torah. Even though none of these things really have the gravitas, the weight to be mevatel a mitzvah sasem in Torah, mikol makayim kishein kairin kehanim in evrim klum. Fine, he says you're not over the mitzvah, but he says mikol makayim yasher koichem shel bnei Eretz Yisrael v'svivaisam. We should give praise to the minig of bnei Eretz Yisrael and those who live around them, Mitzrayim and etc. So noisim kapeim b'chol yom ketikin chachamim, who are actually duchening every single day the way the Chacham were Mesakin, and Mekayim Gimel Mitzvahs Hasei B'chol Yom, and the Mekayim Gimel Mitzvahs Hasei B'chol Yom, Ve'en Chayshish in Litvil, and not Chayshish to be Tevel, and these other Chashas. So the Baal Tanya, as well as the Magen Avraham and others, are emphasizing that the minig of to duchen every day, the Chiv to duchen every day, is still very much valid and alive. Now, what's interesting is that the Goyin, we said, really sought to reinstate it and had some sort of life experience that made him, double back and change his mind. What's interesting is that his Talmud of Chaim Volozhiner, and this is brought down in the same Makairis that bring the story about the Goyin, also made an attempt. And it's fascinating. But before we say the details of it, if you look in the Meshav Davar, the Netziv in Simon Kuf Dalet, he brings as follows. He says, "Hagoyin Maritz, Hagavid the Volozhin Zal." He says, I heard from Mechaisni Hagoyin Maritz Hagavid the Volozhin, from Vitzel of Volozhiner, who was the Netziv's father-in-law. Shepamachas Hiskim Rabbeinu Hagrazal Lahanig Nesias Kehanim B'chol Yom B'Beis Midrash. There was one time when the Goyin was maskim to be manig Nesias Kehanim B'chol Yom V'kvu Min Hashemayim. He was Nesakim Min Hashemayim V'nilkach LeBeis Asurim Beis HaMachlekes HaNeirah B'Vilna. He was brought to prison during the terrible machlekes that happened in Vilna. V'achakach Chaisni Zikni, my grandfather, Hagoyin Abir Haroyim Arinu Harav Rav Chaim Zatzal. This is Rav Chaim Volozhiner. Hiskim b'yom echad sheb'yom ha'machras yitzav l'sikapayim. He made up in his mind that tomorrow they're going to start duchening in his shul or in the yeshiva. U'ba'osei laila nisraf chatzi ha'ir. And that night, half the city got burnt. U'beis ha'knesset sheb'ir, and the shul that was in the city. V'rov v'hispoininu sheyesh b'zei eze davar soid b'sisrei hashpa'as habracha ha'yer le'idei b'chas kayin and b'choil. Ve'eini tanu yedei adma. So the Netziv brings, fascinating, that Rav Chaim Volozhiner also attempted to reinstitute duchening on a daily basis, and the shul and half the city got burnt down on the day that Rav Chaim Volozhiner was planning on reinstituting it. So like the simim and hashemayim of not reinstituting, which the Netziv says we have no idea what it is and what the pshat in this is, says b'vaistois it was not desired that in Chutz La'aretz this should be the minig. And Sai the Goyin and Sai Rav Chaim Volozhiner, each one in their own way, attempting to reinstate it and to catastrophic effect. The Aruch HaShulchan, likewise, in Simon Kuf Chav Ches and Sivkat and Savach Dalet, he brings down, he says a fascinating thing. His words are interesting. He says, There's no valid, good reason for our minig, for the Ashkenazi minig, to be mevatel the mitzvah of Birchas Kainim every day for the whole year. The minig aruahu, and he's paraphrasing Magen Avram's words. The Paiskim are trying gesagt that this is a minig arua. This is not a good minig. This is not something we're proud of. Aval ma nase, he says, what should we do? Kilu baskal yatsa It's as if a baskel came out, some sort of baskel kaviyachal came out to disallow Klal Yisrael from duchening on a daily basis. He says, I have a Kabbalah, shnei gedolei hadar, b'derech shel lefanenu, two gedolei hadar, dahainu, i.e., we could fill in the blanks, i.e., the Goin and his primary Talmud of Chaim Volozhiner, kol echad b'mkoimei ratzei lahanig nesiyas kapayim, each one of them in his locale wanted to reinstitute the policy of duchening every day, v'chol yom, k'shehigbilu yom ha-mugbal hazeh, and when they designated a day that they were going to reinstitute it on this Balbul Inyan V'lei Lahem, something went very awry, and it was not able to come to fruition. You see that Min HaShamayim was Nigzer Kain. Mitzad Hadin Yeshlem Rapi Mash Kasavnu Tzimim Tes. Fine, he continues. So the Tziv and the Aruch HaShulchan are both quoting these stories. So that's already a very chashav and Messiah. Meaning, there are people who are matal defi on these Messiahs and say that these aren't really true things. The guy never really wanted to, of Chaim Volozhiner, etc. But these are the Netziv, the Hashochan. These are somewhat primary sources in Litvish lore, and clearly there's a stark Messiah that the Gain and his Chug really attempted to institute the reinstitution of duchening, and through some divine miraculous intervention, they are prevented from seeing it through to fruition. Now, ultimately, the Gain's minig does, come in Eretz Yisrael. But before we talk about that, I want just an interesting sidebar. There's a third Groise Gadol, nothing to do with the Chog Hagra, nothing to do with the Gain in his circle of Talmidim, who also, it seems, at some point tried to reinstitute it to similar results. It's brought down in a sefer from Brud that writes about Shlomo Kluger, that Shlomo Kluger also wanted to reinstitute duchening every day, and he reached out to different rabbanim, and they were masking to him, and he was kaveya a day that they're going to start doing it, and they're going to really bring it back up. And in this these svarim brings down, it's a sefer Rishimas Hadvar, whatever, and these different svarim brings down that the day that Shlomo Kluger intended to reinstitute duchening is the day that Shlomo Kluger was nifter. So, make of it what you want. That's a third gadol. Now, incidentally, the Welt says over, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky used to say it over a lot, but the Welt says over that we saw Salanter used to ask a kasha. He would say, Chashenish, Rav Chaim Volozhiner, the shul got burnt down, so he stopped, he canceled the plan. He said, Chashenish, if you hold you're supposed to duchen, well, why does a shul getting burned down stop you from duchening? You're supposed to duchen anyhow. Who cares if the shul gets burnt down? So Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, I think, used to say over that the Rav Chaim Volozhiner's psak was, Rav Chaim Volozhiner held, you're not mechuyev for a shul to get burnt in order to duchen. I mean, yeah, you're right. The din is the din. You're supposed to duchen every day. But if shuls are going to get burnt because of duchening, you're not mechuyev for shuls to get burnt to allow duchening. There's a lot of different versions of this, line from Yaakov Kamenetsky. I don't know. You can look around and different stories that bring down Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky's stories. This is the version that Rabbi Nassim Kamenetsky said over B'Shem Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yaakov held that was the lesson. I rather remember seeing once that brought down the name of the Stipler, that the Stipler said that Rav Chaim Volozhiner actually duchened in his shul. Meaning not that this was Rav Chaim Volozhiner, the Stipler said over the story that Rav Chaim Volozhiner wanted to start duchening, the shul got burnt down, and Afal Pikin, they rebuilt the shul and they duchened anyhow. And in Rav Chaim Volozhiner's minyan, they used to duchen. So I don't know one way or the other, but in any case, clearly there's a big push amongst the Gaon and his Talmidim to reinstitute it that was met with some fiery pushback from the Pamal Yishamala. Now, b'chalif and shiyeh, whether or not the Gaon wanted in Chutz La'aretz and wasn't matzliach by and large, but maybe was matzliach a little bit in Chaim Volozhiner's shul. When the Gaon's Talmidim arrived in Eretz Yisrael, then they met with much success, and the place where you see this documented is the Pas HaSholchan in Hilchos Eretz Yisrael. In nice bays, he brings minig yafa b'chol Eretz Yisrael shekehanim leisen kapeim b'chol yimais hachol. He says it's a minig yafa for kehanim to duchen every day yimais hachol. B'yamte b'shachris of Musaf, b'yam kippurim b'shachris b'Musaf, and Ila chei noigim b'chol glila sfard. Now, what's interesting is that the Pas HaSholchan, it's an interesting sefer. The Pas HaSholchan was written by Rishon Shklaver when he came to Eretz Yisrael, and it's a collection of dinim and minhagim that are not discussed either at all or discussed enough at length in the poskim because they were not negeya. And now the Klal Yisrael had made their aliyah la'aretz, the Gaon Talmidim made the aliyah la'aretz, and they were ready to keep all these halachas in the practical life, so he composed a sefer to have all these dinim. So what's interesting is he's bringing this din of minig yafa b'chol eretz shekahanim reis and kapayim clearly for his Ashkenazi olam. He's not talking about for Sfardim. For Sfardim, steht in Shulchan Aruch, that's mefurish. Sfardim don't need the Pas HaShulchan to tell them that they should duchen every day. Sfardim have the Shulchan Aruch to tell them that. Ashkenazim need the Pas HaShulchan to tell them that. So that's interesting. Now in the beer on the bottom, he brings the different sheets of Rishonim, etc. And then he brings at the bottom, there's one interesting line where he says, "B'koilaleinu in our koilam yom shezachinu l'kvay yeshivaseinu b'Eretz Yisrael b'Yerushalayim er kodesh minagenu shakehanim noisin kapayim b'chol yom u'b'Shabbos u'Yom Tov kedas v'chein hudas Rabbeinu Hagadol nishmasei Eden." L'chayr, that means the gain. So the Pas HaShulchan is bringing that from the time we were zeicha to be kavei our koilel in Eretz Yisrael u'b'Yerushalayim, we were zeicha to start dochening every day. So here you see the Minik HaGra finally taking root. And today, if you go to Eretz Yisrael, Taka Ashkenazim also dochen every day, and you see the neskayma machshavasi shalei tzaddik, that the Gaon's desire and his bikush to reinstate dochening, and according to some versions, the Gaon said he'd be vatal Torah and travel around the world to reinstate this, was able to eventually, come to be. Now there is a little interesting digression, a little diak halashon in this Pas HaShulchan that I think maybe we'll discuss a little more in detail. If you notice, he says, "Kishazachinu l'kvay yeshivaseinu b'Eretz Yisrael u'b'Yerushalayim." Now, if you know the travels of the Talmidei HaGra when they got to Eretz Yisrael, originally their kehila was not a Vegeshalt in Yerushalayim. Originally their kehila was a Vegeshalt in Tzfas, until the earthquake, I think in 1836 or 1837, when the earthquake happened and the Tzfas community was destroyed. Then through the incredible, community organizing skill and fundraising skill of Mendel's Club and Ubsromish Club, they were able to, b'chasdei Hashem, reinstate their community in Yerushalayim. Now, if you look in the words over here, the Pas HaShulchan, he seems to be saying that perhaps this minig of dochening every day only started in Yerushalayim. Now, I mentioned that because this will be a point of contention that maybe we'll get to in an upcoming share. Now, just to run through it a little bit, so what are the reasons why we don't tuchem bisman hazeh and chutz la'aretz every day? So the Ramah says, we saw that the Beis Yosef brings down two reasons, either because of tefillah b'mikveh, which is not practical, which he brought from the Agar, which the Beis Yosef said is a chumrah mevil deikula, or because people are trudim b'mechyasam, which the Beis Yosef didn't hold of. We saw the Darkei Moshe, the Ramah explains it more in detail. People are not b'simcha. I'm only in Yom Tov they're b'simcha. Now there's probably, close to 20 different reasons that are given. Again, none of them are amazing reasons, but probably close to 20 different reasons that are given for why we don't tuchen every day, or at least why we don't tuchen every Shabbos, or etc. But I'll just share some of the more chekava ones that exist. The Beis Ephraim Zalman Margolius, in Archaim Vav, the Beis Ephraim brings down something interesting. He says, Heyois, we don't... he says, "Kiven dahani kehani sveika have akavanam laharbi poskim," which we spoke about a few weeks ago. Since the kehana bezman azer kehani safik, they're not kehani vadei. Eich nachal oisim davar ha'iselahem and etzava oisim lisa kapayim. The azar noisa kapav. Everybody say, how are you going to be mitzava them? It's kilu being meichel them treifes by instructing them to duchen. When mevesin duchnish who they are, what their real yichus is. The kaisav archo oisim leizarim kavur b'ksubas sham. The gemara b'ksubas daf chavtal, it says that a zar is not to be nice a kapov. And the Ramah brings down some kafchav that it's an isser asay maybe. So he says heyois the kahanim bizman hazeh are only kahanei chazaka, and they don't have the starke yichus that we're looking for. How can we? It's like machalois and darim v'asurim. He says v'oid, maybe it's a brachal v'atala. So the Beis Ephraim, because of the weakness in kahanim zichus, he says this, and then he continues. It's a line tshuva. Ayin Sham, it's a very nice pilpul. But this is what the Beis Ephraim says. The Chum Sefer in Archaim Sim Chav Gimel, I think actually a tshuva that's responding to the Beis Ephraim. He writes nearly Tam Pashut. He says the Nesiyas Kapayim is Ksiv B'Kra Achar Avoda. It's written after the Avoda, and Tefillah is B'Mkayim Avoda. The duchening goes together with it. And he says Hayos are Tefillas. He says Hayos B'Aveniseno Rabim Kol Yomei Sachol Trudem Alamechia. People are busy with their parnasa. V'Atil Kol V'Roiva Tefillos. B'li kavana. Most people's tefillas are b'li kavana v'tir the meruba. B'tefillah b'li kavana kekarbon she'enei ratzei. Alkein v'varchim b'yamtev sha'elim pnuyim v'chavnim b'tefillasam. We only bench and do it. Heyois duchening is like a carbon. It's like tefillah. We only do it on yamtev when people are not true to pnasam and they're pnuyim and they're able to do it with kavana. Now it's interesting because everybody had we daven every day, but okay, akapanim, havad lon d'lo loisif. If the minig was not to do it, So the Chacham Sofer is giving a post facto rationale based on the fact that people are true them, which we could really interpret this as the Chacham Sofer giving a new layer to what the Ramah really in Darkei Moshe and the Ramah in the Hagayos is saying. In the Kajik Levis Chuvas, in Eretz Tzvi, in Archaim Simon Lamed, he says something else interesting, a very Kajik Lavi Vart, the V'dailim is Bakant with the Kajik Lavi style, always Sanigur and Shal Yisrael, always, being Melamed Tov and Klal Yisrael. So he over there, he says, another story he says is that the Gemara in Avon of Samachay says, Yechaleni lifter kala ilam midin tefillah misham shekura v'lei miyayin. Meaning, which the Gemara is saying is that Gans Klal Yisrael could really be potter from davening because we're considered drunk. Now, not drunk from wine, but drunk from sadness. Klal Yisrael's in Galus, they find themselves in a very shver matziv, and when Klal Yisrael finds themselves in that matziv, the Gemara is already saying Yechaleni lifter, meaning, it's not the thing. So says the Kashik lover. So that's the same reason he says, interesting chap, he says, Gamke the Shikr, Asali says Kapav. The Gemara in a bunch of places brings, it's an Issa de Raisa probably, for a Shikr to be Neisa Kapayim. The Gemara brings a Drasha, it's a Limud, maybe it's even a de Raisa, that a Shikr is the Asur Nesiyas Kapayim. So it says, if the Gemara in Erevin says that we're really potter from Tefillah to Shakur V'lemiyayin, so that's why we don't duch him, because Klal Yisrael is in the blood of Galus, is sad in Galus, the Kahanim have the din of a Shikr and the potter from duchani. There's many more reasons that are given. Some particularly to Shabbos, some not particularly to Shabbos. Some particularly hold that Eretz Yisrael is more Mesugel for Bracha, Eretz Yisrael is more the type for this. There's a Zayar HaKadosh. There's many different reasons that are given, but Dailanu to know that the Ramah strongly says this minig, and Roiv HaPoiskim that came after him were Tamchu Yedeim, that we're not Mevatel this minig, we don't start Tochaning. And I feel those like the Goyin and Chaim Volozhiner who sought to really, take it all the way and change the minig, were met with a resistance min Hashemayim that the Netziv and the Aruch HaShulchan documented as Kain Baskel Sheyatza, and that's how the minig of Jews in Chutz La'aretz, Ashkenazi Jews in Chutz La'aretz came to be so prevalent and widespread in this Kamat. There is no exceptions that we don't duchen every day. Now, there is some further exceptions to the din of Svardim duchening every day, and additionally to the din of duchening in Eretz Yisrael. But I think we'll save that for another time. Maybe next week we'll continue and discuss in detail the exceptions, how they came to be, and what the parameters of that is. Yeshivah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.